Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monday morning business meeting. We'll just start right off with employee labor.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jessica Warren, Human Resources. A few items for you this morning. First is a notification from District Court. One of their court clerks has put in her resignation, so they'll be filling that position. Next is from Public Works. So they would like to reclassify the solid waste compliance supervisor to a manager position effective November 1st, salary grade 545 to 555. And the person would be promoted into that new salary grade with at least a 5% increase.
This is something we workshopped last week. Right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. So,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. And then also from Public Works, their purchasing specialist has accepted another position within the county. So they would like to fill her position.
Okay.
And then those are the only requests I have. Just a quick update from Human Resources. We've been contacted by another group to start collective bargaining. So that'll bring us to 5. The only one we don't have started yet is corrections officers. So once corrections officers starts, probably within the next month or so, we'll have all 6 going.
Ooh.
Good times. And then I will be out of the office starting tomorrow afternoon. I'll be at the WASAC Conference up in Tulalip. So
Oh,
it's the
north of
Public
Seattle.
Employers Relations Association.
That's at the casino.
Yes, it's at the casino.
Yeah,
It's
a little odd.
it's a nice place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Nice
a nice
place.
place. There's also a premium outlet store next to it that I'm really excited about.
There's a Harley shop close too. in
Oh,
case.
perfect.
Yeah.
And then those are the only updates I have. Do you have anything for me?
I think I sent on to you a form from somebody that made me the director of
Yes,
Human
that's
Relations.
the Teamsters group.
That
and-
was the group you just talked about.
Yeah, and they just corrected the form. They weren't
Good.
positive who it would be, but I said it wouldn't be you, so.
No, it would be me.
Okay, that's it. No executive session or anything today?
I will have an executive session with Public Works, but I believe we're doing that during the 11 o'clock hour,
Okay.
Or lunchtime, as the case may be.
I guess. Right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Budget.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So I'm going to be submitting a request for the public hearing for October 3rd for a budget amendment. So I'll plan on workshopping that with the commissioners the Monday before October 3rd public hearing. Budget workshops for the 24 and 25 budget have been set up. Most of those have been set up and they begin next week, September 18th. And there are a total of 4 dates for departmental type meetings. Preparing the data for the commissioners for those meetings for you right now. October will be for other specialized budget hearings. So those are coming up too. So lots of budget workshops and hearings. I'm still working on monthly reports for June and July. They're a little bit behind schedule, but I'll be getting those finished and wrapped up. I'm continuing to work on recruitment for the risk manager and for the office specialist. Good news is the budget analyst position was accepted by Tanya Richardson, and she'll start with us on September 18th. So that'll help me a great deal. And then application for our workers' comp excess policy needs to be completed in the next 45 days. So just lots of risk management duties and budget duties all wrapped up here.
Sounds like you guys feel like you have a fairly good candidate for the risk manager.
Yes, and we have a good second candidate as well, in case
Good.
that falls through.
Good.
So very optimistic.
Good.
Any other questions for me?
Looks like you're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Marin had something come up today, so she did send an email, said there was 236 in custody. They had 52 bookings over the weekend. 6 of them were drug related, 13 DUI, and of course the one murder suspect. IT.
Good morning, Kim Hort, IT Director. There is an agenda item on the agenda tomorrow for the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, and this is just to renew our current licensing for the next 3 years. There has been no module additions or changes to the licensing.
This is one we've talked about,
Mhm.
so it's a little bit of increase, but not.
Well, it's a big increase, but
Yeah.
it's 3 years worth of increase. It was about a 32% increase.
Yeah, over the
So
life
3
of
years,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this would lock us in for another 3 years, so. You have any questions in regards to that?
No, I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
And then we've had some personnel changes. We filled our developer position that was open. And then we also filled our 4th tech position.
Mhm.
And then Patty Caro retired last week. So thank you again for honoring her with the plaque. And, you know, it was sad to see a good employee go, but she earned it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't.
Everybody good? Okay,
Thank you.
could be quick this morning. Any miscellaneous?
I have just one miscellaneous. Next week, I have a couple of meetings for WASAC. One is the Timber Caucus, Timber Counties Caucus. They're meeting on Wednesday at 1 in Ellensburg, and then Thursday is the WASAC board meeting. So I need to get okayed to go ahead and attend those meetings. Please.
Yeah. I saw those coming up.
They're doing the Pilt to Fly in DC today and tomorrow, but that's such a tiny amount of money. It's not really very cost effective. The only time I went back there for that, I tied in meetings with them.
So you get to spend a day or so in lovely Ellensburg?
Well, in September, it'll be warm. Hey, that's all for me.
I do have one request. Those folks from DC who fly in, make sure they fly back.
Make sure it's a round trip ticket. Okay,
Which are those days?
Wednesday, I'll have to leave Wednesday to get over there by 1.
This Wednesday?
Next, the 20th.
Okay.
That's next week.
We don't have a meeting this Wednesday. We presumably have one the following Wednesday.
I'll be here the following
And you'll
Wednesday.
be here.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
And when is the next Board of Health meeting?
The 26th.
26th. Okay, thank you.
And when do we have the evening meeting, or did we stop that?
It would have been this week, but there was nothing on the agenda. So
Oh, okay, so that was canceled. Okay, that was the Wednesday.
So you're good.
Okay.
Do we want to ask about continuing the afternoon session or the the late afternoon session on Wednesday? I can go either way. I know we were probably approaching the 6-month trial we talked
Yeah.
about.
It's probably been close to 6 months, and I think there's only,
I think we've had about 6 people show up.
Unless it's a special meeting and we can
Special,
call one.
yeah.
we can always call a special meeting if there's something
Maybe.
big that we think that would come up.
You'll go ahead and talk to Mr. O'Neill.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could just leave it on the calendar. I'd always had ambitions that we would get various general purpose presentations at that time. Like, I think the Elk Foundation one was a good one.
Yeah,
And Jim Mallett's final presentation might be interesting also, that kind of thing.
yeah. If you want to leave it on the calendar for those type of things, that's fine. If we don't have anything there, we just don't
Just
have a
cancel it.
meeting.
Okay.
I might just bring in, this really belongs in 11, but we have so much time here. I might, I think a couple weeks ago, I spoke a little bit with building and planning on the role of the planning commission and looking at how to make that more efficient. So I think they may talk about it a little bit in the 11 o'clock meeting, but I'll just kind of give you a preview of what we talked about. There's really 2 parts to it. One part is trying to see how we become more efficient with decisions. And when I say we, I mean myself and building and planning have come up with really kind of separating duties. The planning commission would be more project driven. It's really kind of how you direct the duties. There's not really any, changes that could happen fairly quickly, but it's more of a redirection. And so we've kind of looked at them as project driven. They're responsible for the comprehensive plan and updates to that, responsible for developments in the plan and those type of things. And then the other duties are more legislative, policy, code. And we feel like we'd start directing those to the BOCC. And the ones that make sense and we can make a decision on, then they're taken care of. If they're more complex things, we can always send them back to the planning commission for further study on it. But we think a lot of those things, because we meet weekly versus monthly, but a lot of that stuff could happen right away and get taken care of. And then I'll have Wayne at 11 talk about, he comes from a system where they use the hearing examiner more for like short plats, those type of things. And once again, the hearing examiner should speed up the process because they're at our beck and call. They're not a monthly meeting. So what they might chat a little bit about is not really just kind of redirecting where some of the stuff goes. And the example I gave on the flood for the FEMA, do we want to follow FEMA guidelines in the new flood? Or do we want to be different? well, that could have been made right here and that would be done instead of 5 months down the road because they only meet once a month and then everything gets delayed. Another one that that I think would speed up is this whole private roads thing. We've been on this since I've come on board and they're still working on it. And I just think we meet on a weekly basis and any questions we may have with, the roads, those things can be answered much quicker than just once a month. They get together and try to decide them. So that's a couple thoughts on that. It's just kind of redirecting some of that. Then the other thought is really the makeup of the commission. I think Bailey pulled me the latest, newest resolution we could find was from 1961, was when planning commission was formed. And it was formed with 9 commissioners, and I get it. Everything was done. They probably sit around big tables and pulled out these big maps and did all this stuff. Nothing, there was nothing here. And then they wanted equal representation from each district. So it made sense. I think we can pare that down to what I would suggest is maybe look at paring that down to 7, 2 from each district. And then the Board of Commissioners has the ability to appoint a department head. The logical one probably is the Director of Building and Planning, but you're not limited to that. You could appoint any department head. And the thought behind that is then I don't know what's going on with the Planning Commission unless I come in at night and sit in their meetings. And they don't know what's going on with us unless they come in and sit in our meetings or they watch. And I think having a person that is on both sides of that may have some benefits, because both sides get an idea of what others is doing. And that would be, we're not taking anybody out of seats. It would just, as seats come due, like January of this coming year, 2 seats come due, District 1 and District 3, well, they just wouldn't be filled. And then in January of 25, the District 2 seat comes due, and that would be filled by, if we wanted to do that, with the Director of Building and Planning, or you wanted the Fire Marshal, or whoever we decided that would sit on that board. And then you would be down to 2 for each district plus the 1 in-house. So you may hear a little bit of that at 11 when Building and Planning come in. So I'm just trying to give you a preview of what we've talked about. So a lot of stuff to kind of mull over.
If I understand you correctly, the problem you're trying to solve is a latency and
Yeah.
a communications problem. Right. The policy decisions are generally brought forward to us from the various organizations. That would stay the same, I would assume.
Mhm.
At some point in time, at the end of this year, if we're to adopt it, the 2 per district plus the director, at one point in time, we will have an overload on one of the districts.
4? Yeah.
I find it curious, but it doesn't bother me. I hope that we pick people for the board, not because they're going to just push their district above anybody else's interest, but they're going to give us information on what's important in their district.
Yeah.
So I think that might be all right.
Yeah. For 2024, District 2, if we went with this, would have 3 until that term come around.
Are there any vacancies now?
No vacancies right now. Yeah. So I'll put this into because we had some questions for Doug too. One of the ones, you just can't take people out. And so that's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
kind of that. They had a couple questions for him on the other, but he didn't see a real problem with this in the first blush. So we will bring it to a workshop when we have set, this is what we want to do. But right now, I want to keep you informed of what we're talking about. So it's not, I never like to blindside anybody. I like to, you have information as we go.
And how do you separate out the policy from the planning commission?
Well, things that deal with legislative issues that take BOCC approval to change an ordinance or to change that should come through us. If we are comfortable and have the information we need to make the decision, we make it, then they incorporate it into their next decisions when they're dealing with the plan and dealing with
Yeah.
subdivisions.
How is that different than it is now in the sense? that
Because
we-
right now, everything runs through them. And then they make a suggestion and then it comes to us. So this month, they think they're gonna have the final suggestion on this floodplain thing, and then it'll come to us. And if it does, then we make a decision. Well, this is 5 months down the road. And when they first came to us, we said, well, let's follow FEMA guidelines. It should have been that simple. And now we're 5 months down the road.
And is that what they're coming back to us with?
They're talking 3 feet. And I believe this whole private road thing that's been worked on since the first of the year. We have the opportunity every week to have discussion with Public Works and that type of stuff. They still haven't got a proposal in the planning commission because everything's a month apart.
Yeah, I think I understand. What's the paperwork required to change the jurisdiction of the policy?
I don't, that's one of the things we're working with Doug to make sure
Okay.
there's nothing there. It may be just as simple as building and planning redirect where some of that goes instead of how we always have done it.
Got it. Yeah, for me, the planning commission has always been most important on trying to get the flavor of the neighborhoods, if you will.
Yeah.
The-
And when you read through, how it was set up, a lot of it talks about building a plan for your county. I think that's their major focus. And then and I can understand when somebody wants to put a development to make sure it agrees with the plan or what we have. And things like that came up with them last time. We had a builder wanting a specific rezone in his area. Well, I think that still sits in their lap. That makes sense. But some of these other things that are more, we need a just code or we need a policy. We ultimately have to make those anyway. Why don't we see them at first and see if it's easy to get done and try. I told somebody I'm trying to move from a snail's pace to at least a turtle's pace.
But I think it's more than that also. And I have to be careful how to say this, but very often everybody has an opinion. But some of them are useful and some of them aren't. And if you're going to ask me an opinion on some banking element, I'll give it to you, but it's kind of useless.
Yeah.
But I can
Gotcha.
ask you and it might be a little more significant. So when we're talking about the road specifications of private road there, that really falls into public works area, the building and planning area, and then we have to decide. So
Right.
I think that's a key element, not just latency, it's just the content of it makes more sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of my discussions with them so far.
It also, those kinds of developments also involve building outside of fire districts. That was an issue that was brought up a few months ago, that people end up buying and investing, not really realizing they're outside this fire district. We leave it up to them to decide, and then the dispatchers have to tell them, no, nobody's coming to save you. You know,
Could you begin again? I didn't catch any of that.
so we were approached by fire districts who pointed out the dilemma that they are in
Oh,
when people build outside of fire districts, but have have needs for
Mhm.
fire protection. Firefighters are willing. Constitution says you can't give a gift of public funds. If it's outside your district, they're not paying for it, so it's a gift. And then it's the dispatchers who have to kind of, I mean, it's kind of, they carry the burden of saying, no, there's nobody coming. And they don't want to do that either, so.
I think,
That just suggests a review process for a lot of the subdivisions that might be automatic, but
Right.
somebody has to be there to say, you need to understand you're building outside of a fire district.
we still want the review of subdivisions to go through through the planning commission.
Yeah.
But short plats don't.
And you're suggesting they should?
Well, we've got to change, well, I think.
The fire one issue, I'm modestly, if not naively familiar with it. And basically, the fire people offer people outside the district, say, if we come to your house, you're going to pay the full fare unless you want to become a member.
Yeah. I think 911 was going to help with that a little bit, send out a flyer to people that were outside the district, but yeah, when Wayne's in here, he's had experience using that hearing examiner, and I hadn't thought of that myself, but he said it's worked pretty well in other places, but there are, you bring up a point there that they have to be aware of for sure.
So we currently use a hearings examiner, but for what circumstances are you thinking?
I hate to take his words, but I think in other areas, they've used the hearing examiner for like short plats or people dividing their property. And it basically says the examiner's looking at it and go, yeah, everything meets code or it doesn't meet code. And it, it's approved yea or nay, and it moves along the system. And it typically works faster because the hearing examiner is at call. It's not like, well, he only comes in once a month. It's at call, so the things get through. Now, once that's approved and somebody wants to develop it, then it goes right to planning commission. And there's a whole lot of other things that got to happen, but it's.
I see Tracy is logged in.
She's been in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
well, I turned my computer off. I didn't want to scare the world. Wayne is out this morning, so we were gonna kick it till next week, but I know Rick was gonna bring it up. So short plats we do internally. Those are internally done. Those, it's just anyone can divide within the jurisdictions. They have to, based on the minimum lot size, they can divide those up to 4 lots. And those are done internally. The approval is done here. We work with the homeowner or the developer, and those are done here. The hearing examiner can do subdivisions, comp plan amendments, and currently they're doing special use permits as well, including surface mines. So that is kind of currently what's in. Rick, I think you were looking to move the subdivisions and comp plans to the hearing examiner to speed up the processes on those.
Yeah, I thought Wayne had some good experience with that, and we can bump it to next week. I don't care. I'm not.
He does. A lot of jurisdictions send all of those applications to the hearing examiner. Currently, we don't. We only do part of those. And that is something that we can gladly do. That would help processes quite a bit.
So I'm a slow learner there, Tracy. Could you take me through an example that is done, that would be differently done if some of these thoughts were put into action?
Well, the subdivision out on phase 3 Silver Lake Village, I think it is.
Yeah.
That could have been all done by the hearing examiner. We wouldn't have had to wait for the planning commission timelines. We could, if once the application was determined complete and they had all their background stuff done, like their environmental reviews, the SEPA review, Once that was done, we could have sent it to the hearing examiner based on his availability. We could have scheduled it and done. The
Okay, let
commissioners.
me ask you then,
Yeah.
the Silver Lake example, how much latency did the planning commission throw in? Like, did they get put on a list and it took 3 planning commission meetings before their issue came up, or was it just the next month? And the reason I'm asking this is because when we start to build the larger things, what's the common complaint we've heard? Nobody told me. We didn't get a chance to think about it. We didn't get to look at it. So I don't want to cut the latency down so fast that we preclude spreading information properly.
No, it would be the same information. It would also allow the commissioners to take ex parte communications within the applicants. Currently, when an application goes to the planning commission and then it goes to the a quasi judicial matter, only the commissioners and the applicants can, take part in that discussion from the closed record hearing, and this would allow the commissioners to actually go and almost basically support the application in front of the hearing examiner. Because if it was appealed, it would get appealed to the Superior Court. It wouldn't get appealed to the board. It's more law-like. There's actual findings. They do their own hearings. It's the minutes, or that's what they're doing. It's like almost like a court of law. They get their decision, and then based on it, whether they support their decision, then they can appeal it to Superior Court if and when it got appealed.
If we go through the hearings examiner.
Yeah, it's a little
But-
cleaner process where sometimes our board then say this floodplain happens and they want to recommend whatever they're going to recommend. And you've already kind of made your decision on where our board wants to go with it. Technically you could send it back to them and make them agree with your decision. It could go back and forth for long periods of time. This could be a little more straightforward.
Here's the problem I have with that, and that goes back to what I said about the planning commission should represent the spirit of the people in that area, what they want for their neighborhood, their community to look like. And I don't know whether the hearing examiner is going to have that capability to check the boxes. I go with the hearing examiner. Anybody can check the boxes. But I know we've okayed some stuff that I felt my hands were tied, but I was not a happy camper. I thought it was really going to affect a lot of other people in the neighborhood. And that planning commission is supposed to handle those intangibles in my book.
So you still have to be convinced that it's worthwhile to reduce the number and withdraw subjects for their consideration, right?
I'm not convinced either way. Yeah, but that's why the chairman brought this up as a
Right.
discussion.
Yeah,
We want to understand.
even if you don't want to use the hearing examiner, I think you're trying to separate some of the legislative type stuff from the
Right.
other.
Right.
Could still, in my book, would still make sense and help improve the latency thing.
So Tracy, help me remember, we have interim mining controls right now because a committee is working on recommendations. Is that going to be reviewed by the planning commission before it comes to us under our current process? Or are they going to report directly to us?
I'm going to refer to Doug. In 2015, the planning commission actually made a recommendation to our board. And regarding the surface mine ordinance, and then the comp plan amendment was updated, and this kind of got on the back burner. And then it started going through workshops for the last 3 years. And that's what, like I said, we walked into this, and we're just trying to do the last bit of legwork on it before it comes back to the board. I'm gonna not, I have to work with Doug on what the next step is. I have a couple constituents that have worked very tiresome and very thoroughly on the in the work group, and they would like to know the status of it too. So I just need to get a timeline from Doug, and I'm not putting Doug on the pressure, but I need to get a complete list of what we need to do going forward to do it correctly and do it right. But we do have the I do have the recommendation from Planning Commission. So I don't
Tracy,
know if it has to go back.
going back to the Silver Lake development example,
Mhm.
under the new scheme, under a new scheme, that would have gone to the hearings examiner. Hearings examiner would have made a decision.
Mhm.
At that point, at no point then is a planning commission involved in that.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the formality of a hearings examiner, it can become a zoo or good, it doesn't matter, but who's going to bear the cost of that?
The applicant does. It's part of their application fee.
Okay,
They're paying for basically his service, kind of like what they pay for our staffing service.
do you have an idea what, right now, they're trading time for dollars, I guess, is one way to look at it. Because this will be an additional fee they'll have to pay.
Any permit right now that goes to the hearing examiner currently pays the fee.
Right, but we're gonna
couple-
force these people who went through the planning commission prior to now go through a hearings examiner, and so they're gonna bear an additional cost. We don't charge them for the planning commission meeting, right?
No, they get the newspaper fee, but there's nothing more.
So how much is a hearings examiner gonna cost the Silver Lake example?
It depends on the amount of time that our hearing examiner spends on it. Sometimes it's so tough to say. Every application is different. And sometimes his last shorelines permits that he just heard this last month, he was able to make those decisions in the actual hearing then, I mean, right then and there. They were a couple $100. They were, I mean, his time with them, it was very minimal because they had basically all their studies in place, all their ducks were in a row when it went forward.
The
They had all
hearings
their
examiner,
environmental
the hearings
stuff.
examiner is a member of the bar. He
Yes,
charges
absolutely.
lawyers' fees, so.
Yes, yes,
And that's a
they're-
decision this board makes, that the hearings
Correct.
examiner has to be a lawyer.
correct.
And then if the planning commission in the old system approved the Silver Lake development, what recourse would someone objecting have?
They would appeal it to Superior Court,
Okay, and that's the same with the hearings examiner?
Yep.
Okay,
but they're appealing your decision to the Superior Court, where the hearing examiner would bypass our board and go right to Superior Court. It would keep it in the legal realm versus our board. And it would allow you the ex parte communication within the applicant, or you could show your support for an application as well.
but wait, there's a presumption there that we agree with the hearings examiner or we have to?
No, you don't have to.
So we would still be, the appeal to Superior Court would be either for the board or the hearing examiner or both, right?
Yes, depending on the application, yes. We are favorable, Wayne, myself, and then including Mike Wilson, we are very favorable in Rick's ideas of moving some of these applications to the hearing examiner. Many jurisdictions do it their way. The way that Rick is proposing, a lot of them do not do it the way we do it. We currently do it.
Okay, and then let me ask you, from the average person in the street who might be thinking of developing or investing in a development, Does this mean anything to them?
No, because behind the scenes, we're still doing the same legwork. The application still has to be complete and it would still go forward the way it would go forward, depending on which path it took. So all of our i's and t's have to be dotted and crossed before we move anything forward, but it would streamline. It would give more availability. The record is pretty much, it's very official. When the hearing examiner hears it, it's kind of like a court of law decision.
And you keep the short plat in-house still?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yep. Large lots too, just subdivisions and urban and rural subdivisions go elsewhere. Currently to our planning commission.
How about variances? Does that go through hearings examiner?
Yes,
So variance
Surface
would be
mine,
under
special
certain
use.
conditions, the zoning restrictions don't fit. And there's a little flexibility as long as the intent of the restrictions is maintained.
In this day and age, you have to ask, and will we be able to access hearings examiners, or, you know, it's hard to get staff sometimes.
yeah, there is a group that does them. We have one on contract right now. We can always expand it if we need to, but he's readily available.
And, okay, just a lot of minor details, unimportant. We'll figure them out.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we'll put together a workshop, but I think even just bringing this up, you can see the questions that we have and,
Yeah.
you know,
Who do
I'm
you
all
see
for
in-
making things better, but we don't need to, you just don't need to dive into them. I'm okay with the discussion too.
Who do you think should be at the workshop then? Not just us, right? Building and planning and anybody who wants.
Anybody that wants to, really. I mean, somebody from the planning commission wanted to
Well-
show up, I'd welcome their comments for sure.
Well, I'm thinking realtors and or contractors
Yeah.
probably should know about the workshop.
Yeah.
So Rick, have you had a chance to have a discussion with the building planning advisory group?
Haven't yet, and I won't be here for this meeting on Thursday, right? Yeah,
Next Thursday, the 21st.
yeah, I won't be there on the 21st, but I was thinking about writing something up and either dealing with Travis and see if he wants to tackle it or whatnot.
Okay. And this is something that even if the board made the decision today, we would have some code scrubbing to do and some code updates that we can ask legal to help us with to make sure that if this was even to move forward. So we still
Yeah.
have work on our end, a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I moved you up a little bit, Tracy.
No, that's
I
fine.
apologize for.
No, I was listening, so perfect timing. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Take a 15-minute break?
Yeah,
Okay,
so.
we will adjourn. Thank you.